Hello, thank you guys so much for clicking this podcast today. I really appreciate it. I've got an exciting one for you today. It's an in-person podcast with Mickey, the founder of World Mobile. And they've made a huge amount of progress recently. I was looking at their blog posts earlier, and it's just one after another, more updates, more releases, and I'm really excited to do it. How are you doing today, Mickey? And how are you enjoying the event so far?
Amazing event. Really nice to see people like you and the rest of the community. The Earth Node Alliance turned out really strong as well, which was a very proud moment for me. And of course, to see who's building in a bear market. Very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of people building in this bear market. I remember the last one after 2017, and there was almost no one to be found.
Yeah.
I know you guys started building around 2018, 2019.
Right. Yes.
So, usually the best companies, in my opinion, are formed, in markets like this. So that's why it's so great to see, hundreds of people willing to spend thousands of dollars to come together, to network, and still build products. And the Earth Node Alliance actually reached out to me because I'm reserving an Earth Node, and they mentioned they're doing a little get together at 4:00 today.
Yes.
So I'm excited to go to that, and it's nice to see Earth Node operators kind of come together in the same way Stakepool operators did, and there really is that excitement there.
It's driving the community. Not only am I proud, but this is what's needed. It's the core of the network. It's without the Earth Node operators, the network can't operate. So very important.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Earth Nodes. We're going to get into that too a little bit, but I wanted to go over, your recent stats. How many people, are now connected using World Mobile?
Officially on World Mobile token World Mobile Scan, we have around 16 to 18,000. Unofficially, there's a few more, which is going to come live very soon on the network that you'll be able to see on WMT Scan.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll link that down below. And it's always exciting for me to watch that kind of grow over time. And I remember there being kind of like a little node map where you can see where the people are actually connected on there.
I remember the first ever node to go up. Now there's 420 nodes as of yesterday. A good number as our mobile network coded here in America as well. But it's a joy to watch. But what we see growing is going to grow at multiple factors. So as each country gets added that's already online or that's coming online, then more users will come. WMT Scan will be a central point where you'll be able to see the network statistics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and people that are actually using the network, it's going to be really exciting for them to see that kind of expand over time, because it's in the first podcast we ever did, we kind of mentioned that as it grows, it kind of becomes exponential to people joining the network because they're telling their friends, and they actually kind of have a piece of this network, either if they're running Earth nodes or Air nodes. And I think a lot of, Cardano's success, some of it, other than the great research and great design, was all of the SPOs, telling their friends and family about it. And I think the same thing is going to happen with World Mobile. I actually downloaded the World Mobile app earlier. I played it around. I actually did a scan. I kind of scanned the local area right here, and it said I could actually earn some points on there. So, why did you guys release this app, and how is it useful for users, and how is it useful for World Mobile?
If you want to onboard millions and hundreds of millions of people into blockchain, you've got to create a frictionless environment where they can be onboarded. Mm-hmm. Nearly everybody, including probably your grandma, knows now how to use mobile applications. Yeah. So we tried to make it really simple way to interact with the ecosystem. By default, I don't know if you noticed, but if you tap on the information page, you've got a DID. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to do anything to create that DID. You just signed up for the account. You've got a way to stake your World Mobile tokens, hold other Cardano assets, and very soon to be able to hold multi-chain assets in your wallet. You can also hide that function if you don't want to have that function, because maybe somebody who's a generic user who doesn't understand crypto or blockchain doesn't want to access those functions.
Yeah.
You've got a VPN inside the mobile application. You've got a store. You've got something called Scan for Points. Scan for Points is very, very important to World Mobile. What happens is a user like you, and I believe you're also a SIM card tester right now as well on the World Mobile network, is then able to go around, and when you remember, click the button, start scanning, and then you report back through your DID information that you then agree to share with us, that then we give you points for, mm-hmm. in order to understand the live network and what's happening in the real world. So what we could do is we could go out and spend millions of dollars on maps from Ookla speedtest.net, and they could give us each state in the United States of America, and that map would be potentially out of date, would potentially not be giving the information that we need, because it's not just, hey, is a node, a cellular node up in your area. It's more like, what's the ping time, what's the latency, what's the throughput, and many other factors of radiation that we look at to understand how the network functions in its best form. And then by you participating as a community and giving us that information, then we can say, this is a very good area to place an air node. And that's when Operation Air Node comes in, which is where everybody decides, hey, I want to put an anode here, either to fix my own problem, to fix somebody else's problem and get paid for it, or to create privacy in my own home.
Yeah, as an American, and I'm sure a lot of other people around the world feel this way, while I think privacy is important to me, I've almost given up on it. And, when I read your blog post yesterday, you mentioned the eSIM network is actually, the data is secured, which, I don't think exists on any other telecom service that exists. And, the way that you guys are incentivizing users for that data, I like that you're associating it with a DID.
Sure.
Normally, the pay for data schemes are associated with your identity, with your IP address. So, actually seeing that be done through a DID, is really exciting. So how is user privacy, secured using eSIMs and blockchain?
It's not just the eSIM, you said right, and the blockchain. So when a user plugs a cellular SIM into their telephone, one of the mobile network operators here in the USA as an example, I won't name anybody just because, but if you think of the top three, you plug it in that SIM, you're joining the network, and now, because of the 7 agencies around the world that need to catch terrorists and catch bad people and tax dodgers, etc., there's an open channel. So what's right is that you should be able to access your data, and then a law enforcement agency, upon understanding or thinking you're a bad guy, should potentially be able to access your data. So what we do is we conform to all regulation because we cannot grow to be a huge mobile network operator without being regulated, right? But in between, the mobile network operator or the ISP, they have no right to see your data. They have no right to use your data. You can go to Google, type in telecom fines over the last 2-3 years, and you'll be amazed how many companies are selling your location data as an example.
Yeah.
How many companies are selling information about you that you didn't even know about yourself. So when you go home and you're plugged into your mobile network, they know through the route you're coming through when you're coming home. They know when your wife or your girlfriend is coming home. They know when your kids are coming home. When you're in your house, they know your location data when you go in the garden, when you eat dinner. They know when you wake up. They know when you sleep. And we pay them to know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not correct. That's incorrect. So by having an anode in your own house, you actually regain privacy. And you said most people have given up. You're 100% right. In the quest to be connected, we've actually given up our human rights, but we didn't need to.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to hide. You shouldn't be, nobody should try to be hiding the things that you're doing from a government, because at the end of the day, whatever you say about your government, they're the ones responsible for looking after you. They're the ones responsible for making sure that the general public is safe.
Yeah.
But the mobile network operators, the ISPs, they should not know. They shouldn't have this information. They shouldn't have access to it. And they can say, we don't do anything with it. But how do we know? We don't.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at what's happening on Google, we probably can formulate a different answer to their answer. So how about a mobile network operator that says, I can prove that I don't look at it. It's your data. You unlock it. You choose to share it with us. You choose to sell it to somebody else. You choose to donate it. Your choice.
Yeah. I mean, they probably look at those fines as just an expense. When you're making so much money off, seeing when people use the garden or their habits and where they go and how much they leave, they just look at the government fine like an expense, and they just keep, moving on, taking more user data, figuring out how they can use their network and use, phones to gather more and more data from users as we put on watches that have our heart rate. And so they can learn about our blood pressure and our sleep cycles. And, it's just all, being collected. And I'm not even sure they have the ability to kind of, use data to pattern recognize all of this, but, eventually they're going to get really good at that and know a lot about every single person in America and have, instead of DIDs for us, they're going to have identity files for us with predictions about our actions and our future.
You got it, man. Profiling, right? And this is not paranoia. This is something that just will happen. And it's got to happen because you've gone from telecom companies having their initial boost and all of a sudden you had voice over IP come out. They lost a huge amount of revenue. Then you had WhatsApp come out. And then WhatsApp dropped all the SMS revenue, the short messaging revenue. And then you had a ton of other OTT, over-the-top applications that came out. And now the cash flows for the telecom companies are tanking. And they're struggling, the biggest ones in the world. So how else are they going to make money? There's a way for them to make money, and there's a way for them to make money. So how we feel is that as a telecom provider, we should not make money by selling someone's data, but we should also not be believed that we won't sell your data because we said so. That's the beauty of blockchain.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. And I think that I hope it actually sets a standard, for other telecom services, or other people building new applications that kind of take in that data. And, I kind of see, the cryptocurrency industry, pushing that forward, at least, either paying people for their data or not taking it at all, or allowing people to actually choose and select it. So, when we did our first podcast, the main focus for World Mobile, was Africa. And, now you guys are moving into America with eSIMs, and that blog post you mentioned that, people can seamlessly travel to, 44 countries and still be able to, use their mobile data, which I think is really cool. So, what is there a shift in focus here, or is it really just an addition? Why America?
It was always in the plan.
Yeah.
World Mobile, in
Yeah.
the name, right? So Africa, extreme hard mode, right? Play Doom on extreme hard mode.
Yeah.
That's what Africa is. It's a continent that is the most needing of infrastructure and setting up. It's the least unconnected place on the planet as a continent. It's the youngest place. It's the place where people have mobile devices. So it's only logical that we went there first.
Yeah.
And we went there in hard mode, and we went there to actually go there and build a mobile network. And it was born there, as you know. The Zanzibar network was the first proof of concept, was the first validated assumptions that what we were doing was actually working. How we built World Mobile is based on assumptions. You base the assumption, you then go and check the assumption, you then go and validate that check, double check, and you say, okay, that's ticked off. That assumption worked. Assumption number 2. So assumption number 1 was a sharing economy interested? Yes. Assumption number 2 was, could we build a sharing economy with infrastructure on Wi-Fi, on unlicensed spectrum in the African continent? Yes. Number 3, were the aerostats going to provide longer coverage and longer signal than anybody else could from a height? Yes. Number 4, could we build antennas that would go further than anybody else in the industry? Yes. And that's the solution, is to find the different assumptions and work your way through. So as we proved the sharing economy working in Zanzibar, and then we saw the sharing economy get exported to Kenya and to Nigeria, and then now to Pakistan, those assumptions are validated. So no shift of focus, but we've left the proper foundations for this to grow organically. And whilst I do genuinely believe the next big opportunity is bringing on the continent of Africa, very young entrepreneurial people, it's a huge unlocking of a gig economy. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
So whilst we're letting it grow and we're still holding hands, and I would say it's about a 14-year-old at the moment. You've got some independence, you've got a mobile phone. We allow you to catch an Uber on your own, but we want you back every night at 10 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
So we're holding the hand and we're making sure that it still can grow, but with some guidance from its parents. At the same time, we want to connect 1 billion people before 2030. This is what I've stood up to the United Nations, what I've stood up to the International Telecommunication Union, and said to them, I meant it. In order to do that, we've got to go across different continents and grow the sharing economy. So now for the next year and a half, the focus will be on North America.
So, when choosing different jurisdictions, there's a lot of people in this world that is still unconnected, and, companies and people, we all have bandwidth. How do you guys choose the next jurisdiction to go into as far as connectivity? Because, India, for example, has a huge amount of unconnected people, and I'm sure there are other parts of the world that I don't even know about that have the same thing. So, with your guys' bandwidth, how do you choose, what is the next step? Is it based on, amount of unconnected people, or, the current regulations and easiness to set up? Like in America, we already have a lot of this infrastructure as well.
A whole factor of things that you throw into a bucket.
Yeah.
But it's based on not ease, it's based on necessity, and then it's based on a balance between profitable jurisdictions and needed jurisdictions.
Yeah, that makes sense. I read your recent dev article about Earth node operators, and we're actually soon going to be entering the testing phase. How far away are we actually from testing Earth nodes on the test net?
You said you'd get me, got your questions. I believe next week, the private testnet moves to a public testnet. You Earth node operators are going to test that and run that through.
Yeah.
And then we will move towards mainnet light. The reason we call it mainnet light is because we're adding so many different chains. And there's probably going to need to restart the mainnet. So if I restart a mainnet, people will be very upset that we've restarted a mainnet. If we call it mainnet light, then real traffic can run through that mainnet.
Yeah.
You operators can earn revenue for processing that traffic and for validating the blocks and for running the value-added services. But we can then take some time before we go to a fully decentralized operation that we'll call mainnet.
So you already have some Earth node operators testing on it in a private testnet.
Yeah.
That's very exciting, and I'm happy to hear that. So you mentioned, they're dealing with different chains. what are those different chains and how do they really, come together to make, World Mobile work for people?
We're not just connecting the unconnected. We're also connecting blockchains, something very important. Everything at the moment, and Charles himself, good friend of mine, he was the first person that I heard to say that interoperability is the key thing for the growth of the industry.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the person who is the co-founder of Ethereum, founder of Cardano, and been in the industry as long as anybody else has. Right. He recognizes it. We recognize it. You don't want to ostracize or create a barrier for entry for people to join the sharing economy. Okay. What you want to do is you want to allow people on the native chain, if they're a maxi, to be able to operate, stake, run, and contribute to the sharing economy of the world mobile ecosystem.
Yeah.
If you've got one company trying to do this, or one community trying to do this, we've seen these mistakes. We've seen it with Facebook, we've seen it with Google, we've seen it with Microsoft, who have gone after connecting the unconnected. They have gazillions of dollars, right, to be able to do this. They haven't achieved it. What we can do as a community is all come together for a common cause, because actually behind the maximalism, there is a common cause, right?
Amongst all of us, really.
Yeah, and some people are in it for the cash, and some people say they're in it for the cash. But in reality, I think we're in it to change the world. I think we're in there to have the tyranny, the transparency that we so lack, to actually bring it to us in a way that everybody can have something that they don't have to trust. So creating World Mobile was something that I always thought about multi-chain. I always thought about having different communities come in. And tribalism is really quite important for societies to grow and evolve and to protect and to feel loved and cared for and to nurture. But you put multiple people in a room, even if they are a tribe, and all of a sudden you see them interoperate, you see them connect, you see they have a common cause, right? We go to bed, we eat food, we work, we earn our money. It's all the same.
Yeah.
So having a barrier to entry because someone doesn't want to jump from Ethereum to sell their Ethereum on a DEX to then buy ADA, to then come and buy World Mobile token and be part of the economy, or to stake to your node that's running on Cardano, as an example, to remove all of that complexity and to have somebody be on their own chain but interoperate with any other chain is something that I think is really important in the industry. That's what we're pushing forward.
Yeah, something that Charles said that has always stuck with me is, what we need to build is a network of networks. And, while humans are, tribalists, the tribe could be this industry. It could be cryptocurrency. It doesn't have to be just Cardano. Because, ultimately the best future for cryptocurrency and, its only ability to change the world is if we all are a tribe and we build a network of networks that bring different niche, utility to different types of people all around the world. My next question for you was, how do Earth nodes use smart contracts? But you kind of explained it a little bit. Is it because of the cross-chain, platform? You kind of need smart contracts to allow these networks to work?
It's probably a question I should defer to Torben and Antonio, and we should actually get Torben on the show with you. And
that'd be great.
On the show with you.
Yeah, I like to do a little deep dive into tech sometimes.
I get told off if I say too much. So
yeah, that's fair.
It's better that they tell you.
Yeah. So, what chains are you guys working with? Is your end goal kind of, where the users are at, and what chains are you really focusing on right now? I know Cardano is obviously one. I think Cosmos, I've heard of Cosmos being another one. What chains are your main focus right now?
I think the end goal is, it's not only community, right? It's about being able to take advantage of each chain's prowess. So Cardano, for me, is the number one, right? But it's very difficult for developers because they're not used to Plutus and Haskell to create the same products that they would on Ethereum, as an example. So Solidity is fantastic because you've got the common people who understand and have been developing for the last 5, 6 years, 7 years on Ethereum, right? And then you've got Conflux, which is another chain we're working with. It's really interesting. Proof of work, proof of stake. And we can leverage many of the things that they're focused on. They're focused on telecommunications in the Asian markets and also in the African markets. Then you've got BNB chain, which is quite interesting as well, and developing a very rapid pace. And then all of those have their communities, and all of those are needed in order to connect these 3 billion people that are still unconnected in the world.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that any one chain is the best chain. Not yet. There might come a day where one chain is the best chain, but I don't think so. Just like one type of food isn't the best type of food, right? So we're in a position now where we can interconnect, and telecoms is all about interconnection, by the way. It's always been the same. It's not like, okay, you're just on Orange. Okay, you're on Orange or you're on T-Mobile. What happens when you go out of range of T-Mobile? You're going to lose a connection?
Yeah.
No, they have partnerships with
Yeah.
other telecom companies.
Mm-hmm.
And then you roam onto their network, they roam onto your network, and you take advantage of all the best things. One's a 5G standalone, one's a 5G stand-up network, one's a 4G network. They all work together. So sharing economies in telecom has always happened, and where everybody can interoperate. But the big difference is our sharing economy isn't restricted to just the global elite. Our sharing economy is for the people, run by the people.
Yeah, for everyone. So, with Earth node operators, when they come in, either on the public test net or when the light mainnet launches, are they essentially, creating a new chain that kind of sits in the middle of all of these different chains and connects to them?
I think that's what IR is, yes.
Okay.
That's how we visualized it.
Yeah. So recently you guys partnered with Singularity Net. How will AI benefit the World Mobile Network?
In multiple different ways. We've created ourselves a AI voice assistant that you will call. And when you've got, in fact, I'll give you the telephone number. And when you have a problem with your SIM card, she answers or he answers all the problems that you've got. She's pre-programmed to do so. And she's able to understand and work out that if you can't explain your problem properly, the problem might be this. Many different ways. For a company, you save a lot of money on CapEx and OpEx. Because as you grow to 100,000 users, 1 million users, 10 million users, the amount of support staff you need is phenomenal. And then typically what companies are doing, because they're not making as much profit as they were, that they're going to find their support staff in second world countries, right? Spanish speaking will be in Mexico, that will serve the entire Spanish market. English speaking will be in India, that will serve the entire English speaking market, and so on. But what you're doing is you're creating a lot of work for somebody who might not want to do that work necessarily, and might not want to be met with your hostility on the phone saying, why doesn't my SIM card work? I've just traveled from London to USA. This is not happening. Where you can actually filter many of those problems out. And then at the end result, if it can't solve the problem, then you finally get to an operator who gets a piece of information that says, this has been tried, this has been tried, this has been tried, this has been tried, who can then effectively do that job for themselves, right? And for you, and get you the end result. Or ideally, it never has to go to the operator and the system can solve it itself. So customer support is a massive thing. That's something we've been working on for probably 5 years or 6 years. And something that's come to fruition now. And then we've got a lot of the chat GPTs and the partnership with Singularity and all these different elements that we're able to improve what we've already created. The second part, probably the most interesting part, and maybe slightly more long-term, is data loans. So when we talk about blockchain-based loans, I'm not talking at the moment about loaning money to people. It's something I don't particularly believe in, although it can be useful, but we can leave that part out. What I'm saying is we've got, let's say, 20,000 users, 25,000 users across the network. We're quite small right now, so we can see who runs out of money, at which time they run out of money, and compared to their top-ups and their frequency of purchasing, should they be offline for those 3 days at the end of the month where they can't afford the internet? Or 3 days at the end of every 2 months where they can't afford the internet? And is it that they've turned their phone off? Or is it that they don't have the money to be able to buy data? So with AI, we're able to then siphon through all of that information with the permission of the user to say, this is a credit profile. You now have 10 megabytes, 100 megabytes, 500 megabytes, 2 gigabytes, based on your consumption, your spending, the consistency of your account. And now instead of you going to borrow money from somebody else to actually take a loan to go and buy more data, or instead of you suffering by being online, we'll give you 500 megabytes of data. And then when you top up at the beginning of next month, the algorithm works out, can they afford to then pay us back that 500 megabytes of data? Yes. And then you put a small surcharge on there, 2%, 3%, 1%, 0.5%, 5%, depends on the environment. And then that money comes back into the system as data. And then, of course, that feeds the entire ecosystem. So then Earth nodes, air nodes, everyone benefits from that user being online, including the user himself.
Yeah, that's very user-friendly. And just having a little small fee, it also kind of supports the network as well. Yeah. So I think that's very important. On the road to 1 billion users by 2030, what do the next 2 years look like? And then we'll get to, 5 years after that.
Pakistan is looking really, really promising. If the growth that we've seen in the last 3 months continues, we're talking tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of nodes in the next 1 or 2 years. Zanzibar is going to work for itself and grow for itself. Nigeria is a huge market for us, where we're working with Starlink backhaul and a few other elements. North America, 10% of the population unconnected. It's 28 million people, right? Around 15 to 20% on top of that underserved. And I'd argue that you're underserved as well, and I'm underserved when I'm here. The opportunity is absolutely massive. Operation Airnode is a big moment for us. September, October, sometime, the first batch of Airnodes will go out. We'll be defining where they should be placed, but of course anyone can place them wherever they want. But if you're looking for an ROI in a reasonable amount of time, then we've identified with Scan for Points where those areas should be. And we've created the wholesale agreements with other mobile network operators to allow their customers to seamlessly roam onto our network and pay our Airnode operators and our EarthNode operators for processing their data. So the next 1.5 years, 2 years should see massive growth of World Mobile.
So, it's really impressive to me, that you guys are actually, doing deals with large telecom networks. I view large telecom networks like, banks, kind of these dinosaurs that don't change, don't improve over time, and kind of slowly just take from users. And, that's why I see such a huge opportunity with World Mobile is, someone coming in to, shake things up and actually having, a user-focused, network service for people. I mean, I think that, a lot of people are really going to enjoy that. So I actually saw an EarthNode. Or not an EarthNode, but an AirNode downstairs in the lobby today. And it was really exciting to see. I've been kind of wanting to purchase one. Just the idea of, being someone in America and being able to purchase, an AirNode and, putting it up somewhere. Operator. Yeah, and actually connecting people as well. Giving people to where, as you mentioned, they don't have to walk 10 miles anymore to, have access to internet. So, how far are we away from that? The average person, or maybe even a private group of users at first, to be able to purchase an AirNode and try them out for the first time?
We brought a van. Have you seen the van outside?
I did see the van. Right. I actually watched you guys drive it up yesterday. We were walking and we were like, oh, look. It was pretty exciting.
So the whole idea of that was to demonstrate. So we have around 50 of us, including you right now. I'm sure you'd like to do a speed test for everybody to see the connectivity from the van to here. But the idea of that was to show that with a Starlink or with a backhaul, fiber backhaul, within 20 minutes, you can set up a mobile network.
So that's actually coming from the van.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I was actually trying it out. I watched like a little bit of a YouTube video. I tried out Pokemon Go, and they both worked perfectly fine. I had no issues. I had to switch my my network over, but I'll run a speed test real quick and see where we're at. We're pretty high up too. The van's on the ground. I think we're on the 7th story right now. And I'm getting about 52 megabits actually per second. So megabits is 9 megabytes or 8, something like that. But yeah, that's pretty incredible. And I was shocked about how seamlessly it worked. And this is coming from an AirNode.
Yeah.
Wow.
An AirNode plugged into a Starlink, running on a van, on a generator. There's obviously a lot of magic that happened behind the scenes and a lot of hard work building out a mobile core. And part of those elements of the mobile core, the telecom module, the IPDR settlement is running on your EarthNode, right? Not your EarthNode, but we'll be running on your EarthNode. It's running in the private testnet right now. And that traffic is processing through there. So a lot of work went into building an entire mobile core for a company. But now anyone can buy an AirNode, plug it in, automatically detects a network, and becomes live on the World Mobile Network. So you can go home, you can take an AirNode with you, you can start serving your community.
So will there ever be a world where, even if you don't take it home with you, that you can actually buy these AirNodes and, somehow have a license agreement with someone that lives in a different country where they're unconnected.
100%.
And, you're paying them a fee, but you're doing the initial investment for the AirNode, but they're kind of taking care of it,
World Mobile hopes to get to that position, but due to regulations and legality, securities, for example, it's not cold cut, right? So it would mean that you as a host and somebody else as an owner could make that agreement between yourself. So what we've created is a platform that you're able to meet that host and you're able to say, hey, I want to be the owner. I want to own an AirNode. I want to put one down in Zambia. I want to put one down in Kenya. I want to put one down in Tanzania. I want to put one down in the USA. Where should I go? You come to the map and you say, okay, all these hotspots that are looking red, or you say, okay, that's a hex that I could own. And then a host has come and said, I live in this hex, right? I live in this shape. I'm willing to put one up in my house. You guys sign an agreement between yourself. And all of a sudden, you become almost a franchisee of the World Mobile Network where you're running your entire infrastructure peer-to-peer with somebody else.
Yeah, well, considering how many people I've met, just today from all over the world, and we're in the middle of the U.S. right now. It's kind of hard to get to Colorado if you're coming from somewhere else,
Yes.
and there's people all over the world here, and online, I get messages from people all over the world. So I definitely see that future as being possible, where people are easily connected with each other. For people in the United States or the UK to be able to host air nodes in places that are unconnected, because that's always what has really excited me, is being able to actually provide value to those people and kind of build this greater network. And while I would be happy to kind of set one up in my local neighborhood, kind of supporting those that have not is kind of always what has
I think
interested me.
that's a different driver, and there's many people that want that. There's many people that say, and I
Yeah.
think the key thing here is that you're also making money whilst you're doing it.
Yeah.
So not only is it philanthropy,
Mhm.
it's not charity.
Yeah.
It's something that you put out, you make an investment into yourself, into that infrastructure, into the place that you're hosting it. The host's responsibility is to look after it, power it, keep it going, and you're both making revenue. And then what does that mean? It means that you're very happy that you're both making revenue. And then the potential for you to buy another node and find another host is far more real. And then that's how you get the network effect. That's how you get the density of the map, an economic model, an incentive model
Yeah.
that brings revenue back to your pocket. Whereas being a charity, it could be that, God forbid, one day you decide that you don't want to do it anymore. What happens to that node? What happens to that connectivity? What happens to that area? What happens to those people that rely on it? It's not sustainable. Charity is fantastic to fix a short-term problem, or to help, or to allow people to grow temporarily, but it's not sustainable. And we've seen that year after year, decade after decade. So you've got to drive revenue into these nodes, and that's what we've worked so very hard on, is making sure that revenue will fly in, so you're incentivized to keep that node up, so you're incentivized then to buy more.
Yeah. In my short life on this earth, I think the best products or ideas that I've ever seen are products and ideas that merge those two things, philanthropy and, actual revenue generation. Because, you get people from both sides.
Yep.
And then the people that are coming in from the philanthropy side, they're getting more revenue and they want to increase that, that side of them. So, this podcast was great. It was really insightful. You guys have developed so much even since the last podcast we did. And, I think a year from now, I'm just going to be like, wow, like the same way. I was sitting there doing some research, last week and a little bit today, and I was just like, wow, they've been running it. You guys have seriously picked up a lot of momentum, and it's really exciting to see. So I'm looking forward to the future of World Mobile. Is there anything that we didn't mention in this podcast that's real exciting that we want to make sure we say before we get off?
So much, but we could go on for hours, right?
We could.
So let's get online another time. Let's see where we are in 3-4 months' time.
Yeah.
And I think in a year's time, you might have multiple air nodes running through your Earth nodes and reselling SIMs to your family and your friends and your community.
Yeah.
To be far more secure, private, and cost effective.
You're going to be in Dubai?
I'm going to be in Dubai, absolutely speaking.
Yeah. Let's if you have time, let's set up something there, see the progress.
Looking forward to it, man.
Yeah. Thank you so
babe.
much. And I hope you guys all have a good day. If you enjoyed it, make sure you comment air nodes down below to let us know you made it till the end. It's always really exciting to see that. And, this is one that was definitely worth it. So be safe out there, everybody. Have a good day.